What's up? This is Cont from XFaderz and I'm back with another video. In this video we'll cover the Gemini PMX-20. If you haven't already, take a look at my review of the Gemini PMX-10, which is the little brother 2-channel mixer. I've had this mixer for a couple of weeks, and ironically I was able to pick this mixer up on HomeDepot. It was very important for me to show you this website because I found it hilarious that they actually offer DJ equipment. But if you notice, the price here is $319. Original price $399, so I was able to pick it up for roughly $79 cheaper than what it's selling for right now. At the time of you watching this video, the price may not be the same, but I encourage you to check out other websites, especially reputable websites that may offer DJ equipment as well, and you may be able to find a deal as I found here. Checking out the side of the box, you'll be greeted with the overview of the mixer. So it's basically a 4-channel mixer. It's rugged, metal construction. It has send and receive effects, as well as is fully MIDI customizable, and a replacement crossfader. So if you're interested in getting an NO fader, it will work for this device. So let's go ahead and spin around the box and open it up so I can show you everything inside. So the first thing you'll see is the review card. So Gemini has placed a card inside of the box to let you know if you place a review on a website that you purchased the device from, you'll be able to enter to win another item from Gemini. You'll have the IEC cable. Standard IEC looks like a 6-foot cable. And inside of the packaging here, you will see that it has standard RCA cables. Nothing special, just one set of RCA cables. Next up, you have a standard USB cable. Gemini has also included a Virtual DJ LE version 8 key to allow you to use this mixer. It also includes a 30-day trial of the full version of Virtual DJ. I'll go into more details about that later. And last but not least, the manual for the mixer. It has very basic information inside of here, but you'll find out more details on the Virtual DJ website, as well as the Gemini website if you need assistance. And on this page here, you'll find out the details on how to remove or replace the crossfader. So let's go ahead and remove this mixer from the packaging completely. So I would like to start off this review a little bit different. Instead of talking about the face of the mixer, I want to start with the sides of it. So once you tilt it to the front, you'll notice that there's no controls on the front of the mixer. So no curve controls or crossfader or reverse or anything like that on the front of the mixer. Spinning around to the back, you'll be greeted with the standard setup. So starting at the top left, we have the power. Below that is the IEC. We have 2 balanced XLR. We have 3 unbalanced RCA ports, which is the master, booth, and record. And the center is your USB. Now each one of the channels or inputs has its own dedicated phono and line switch, but it only has one set. Next up is the mic in combo jack, followed by the effects, send and receive RCAs. Now let's go ahead and take a moment and talk about the front of the face. Of course, this is all metal construction and it seems pretty solid, so no gripes or concerns there. So starting at the top left of the mixer, we have the effects, and right below is the loop size. And to the immediate right, we need to mention to the effects 2 button. Jumping back over to the loop section, there's the activate on button, channel 1 and 3 controls, the hot cues and sample, and the 8 hot cue pads. At the very bottom of it, you will see the 1/4-inch headphone jack. Starting at the top of the channel, there's a USB button to activate the sound card, a gain, high, mid, low, followed by the filter. Right below that is the FX send and the Q button. Now each one of the channels are exactly the same and they have the same exact controls. At the very top of the mixer, you have your load decks 1 through 4. You have a large scroll wheel or scroll knob. To the left is the back button and to the right is forward. And you can click in on that scroll wheel if needed. Right below that is the FX send, followed by the master, booth, return, the mic talkover, as well as activating your mic on off. Below that is the Q and program to fade between it and your headphones, and the Q volume is right below. And the standard crossfader that is replaceable. It's about 3.5 millimeters of lag, so it's exactly the same as the PMX-10. And again, the same thing applies on the right side of the mixer as the left when it comes to the channels, as well as the loop and effects and hot cues. At the very bottom, you do have a control knob, or a curve crossfader curve control knob. It works pretty good, but it is a soft push-in button that stays locked in place. So I'll go ahead and plug in the mixer so we can turn it on. The good news is once you first power it on, it doesn't take too long before it gets into a mode where you can use it. It seems like the norm with most of the sound card mixers nowadays. So this mixer actually has 3 different modes. So we have mixer mode is when you first turn on the device, is the standard mode, followed by the MIDI mode and the time code DVS mode, and I'll go into a little bit more details. To switch between the modes, you'll need to press and hold the USB button at the top for 10 seconds. Afterwards, you'll see the button flash to indicate that it has switched over to that mode. So again, when you first power on the device, it's going to be in standard mode. When you tap the USB button on each one, you'll be able to activate the sound card for that particular channel. Right now, it's just considered a standard mixer mode. When you press and hold the USB button for channel 1 for 10 seconds, it will switch it over to DVS mode or timecode mode. So what it does is activates channel 1 and 2, which are the center 2, to work with DVS, and the 2 outside channels will work as standard mixer, so turntables and CDJs and stuff like that. And the last mode will be MIDI mode. So if you press and hold the channel 2 USB button for 10 seconds, it'll flash when it's ready to switch over. This mode converts the whole mixer over to a MIDI controller. So connecting anything to the rear of the controller, it will not work. So CDJs, turntables, anything connected in the back will not work. It will strictly work with your DVS software. So a little bit of additional information about these modes. Once it is converted over to USB mode, the FX send buttons are disabled. Also, when you're using a crossfader, it will switch over to the respective side. So 1 and 3 will be everything to the left, and 2 and 4 will be everything on the right. There's no way to switch between the two. So if you are mixing with all 4 channels, you will need to use your up faders on channel 3 and 4. I would highly recommend, if you're having any issues with the switching modes or having problems with the mixer being recognized through your USB or on your computer, I highly recommend just hitting the on-off switch in the back. It may take a couple more seconds, but at least resetting it may resolve the issues that you're having. Before we actually get started, it is very important that you check the firmware on your mixer. In my case, the firmware was outdated and I was having trouble setting up anything on the device, so connecting it to Traktor Virtual DJ or using some of the basic functions of it was not working properly. So simply download the update from the Gemini website and make sure you go through your normal precautions. If your computer is a laptop, plug it in to eliminate any chances of it failing on the firmware update. So now that we got all of that out of the way, it's time to actually jump into the review. I wanted to start off by discussing the FX send and return. So one of the issues that I experienced with the PMX-20 as well as the PMX-10 is the noises that come from it when activating certain things, whether it be sound card, and in this case, the FX send and receive. So I'm able to recreate the issue. So I'll give you an example here. When I press the FX send and receive a couple times, you'll be able to hear it after a few tries. Listen closely. And that popping noise occurs when you also change modes. So pressing and holding the USB button, you'll also hear it again. And there you can hear it again. It wasn't as loud. But when I switch into another mode or hit the send and receive, you'll hear it again. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out and for you to be able to hear it. Also listen through the rest of the video. You will hear it when I switch between modes as well. So expect this to happen during your mixes or when you're just playing or practicing in general. I haven't been able to pinpoint why it happens, but I can definitely confirm that it happens each time those buttons are pressed. So I connected the mixer up to the Behringer DSP-1000 virtualizer. This will simulate send and receive effects setup. So I know the ideal setup would be a Pioneer effects or the Chaos pad, but this will do the same thing in theory. So basically I'm just turning on and off the send and receive so you'll see how it sounds, as well as activating the post and pre-fader effects. The effects do not work on the microphone, so this is a test just to show it does not work on the mic. So I'm not sure if you can hear me that well, but I was basically testing to see if the effects would work on the microphone, and it does not. I know it was a long shot, but it does not work on the mic. We'll cover a little bit more about the microphone, but I'm pretty sure you noticed that the volume or the preamps were very low. And take a look at the knob. It's turned up relatively high. So we'll cover that a little bit later in the video as far as what that Talkover does, as well as the volume of the microphone. So I'd like to start off by doing the Traktor Pro 3 review of the PMX-20. But first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Groundbeat. He had commented on my PMX-10 video in regards to the post-fader effects in Traktor and running the device in internal mode. And we're going to discuss that in this section here. But I wanted to just acknowledge the fact that I do enjoy providing the most information possible. And one of the things he definitely brought up was using internal mode to get the post-fader effects to work. So in general, this mixer is a MIDI mixer, and the idea is that you should be able to route that through Traktor Pro, but the problem is it is still a mixer first. So what I mean by that is when you drop the volume knob on the fader, the post-fader effects should come through from Traktor, but the problem is it only allows it to work as a mixer. So when you drop the fader, it cuts out all sound on that channel, so as a result you can't hear the post-fader effect. But if you open up the mixer console on the software itself and drop the fader down in the software, leaving the up fader channel activated on the mixer, the physical mixer, you will hear the post fader effects. So not necessarily intuitive or good for your workflow, but technically it does work, but just not in the conventional way as it is expected to work. So on screen at the moment, I wanted to focus on the mapping for this particular device. So unfortunately, there's no mapping TSI file for it. So instead, I used the one for the PMX-10 just to get you started. So by loading that file, you will be able to, I guess, use some of the features of the mapping. So the 8 hot cue pads and the effects and stuff, but it will not work properly for the additional channels. So channel 3 and 4 is not set up, but at least it'll get you started in the mapping process. And also when you set this up, you do have to do a little bit of configuration, which is changing it over to generic MIDI and using the in port and out port, switching it over to the PMX-20. But as you can see here, it does have some contents populated in there. So you can sort of use that to copy and paste the mapping for the additional channels. So just to reiterate, the expectation when trying to use it with Traktor Pro is you will need to configure all of your mapping settings for this software, at least to be able to use the controller to your advantage. But overall, as far as what I have, I connected it to my turntables and switched it over to DVS mode, and it worked absolutely fine. No problems there whatsoever. If you want to see a little bit more details about that, you can take a look at my PMX-10 review. But for the most part, I just wanted to hit the fact that majority of the buttons do work. And that is to include the loop, the effects. Even though it's programmed a little different, as mentioned, you can go in and customize it exactly like you want. As far as the overall experience, the buttons were very responsive. I didn't have any issues doing basic mixing, scratching, stuff like that. Now the crossfader, again, I would suggest replacing it for InnoFader if you plan on doing any heavy scratching or heavy turntablism. I would highly recommend switching over to that particular one. And that's all I can pretty much mention about Traktor. It's pretty much straightforward. It is a compatible controller for the software, but you'll be able to see here shortly that it was actually designed and catered to virtual DJ quite a bit more. So switching over to virtual DJ, I was able to connect it right up, no issues. And it recognized the mixer, so I could select it in the software. Whether you're using the DVS mode or the standard mode where you can activate each individual USB, or even using MIDI mode, it worked pretty good. I didn't have any problems whatsoever. So switching it over to the DVS mode, you'll hear the sound again. And I'm not sure if you heard it in the background, but it's connecting the USB via the DVS mode. So once the mode is activated, the channel 1 and 2 will switch over for DVS, and 3 and 4 will be designated for, I guess, CDJs or just physical inputs on the device, so it cannot be controlled by your USB sound card. So just for a quick demo, I'll cue up a record and just play a song. So to jump back on one of the topics I mentioned earlier, which is the microphone preamps, I feel that they're kind of low for this budget device, and I feel like they can be a lot better. So for example, once I turn on the mic, I'll give you a demo of how it sounds. Testing, 1, 2, 3, check. So what ends up happening is the Talkover button will lower the volume of the audio about 10 dB. But what's also happening here is that the levels for the microphone still isn't high enough to cut through the mix. So unfortunately, if you do have to do any microphone work, you will have to turn down the volume on your channels to be able to get that mic to cut through even more. So for my final thoughts, it's kind of weird that I didn't have as much to say about this mixer as I did the PMX-10. And I think ironically, when it comes to these that are just compatible with DJing software, it's only as good as how you make it. So for example, how you customize your mapping, how you plan on using it in your sets is what really determines how this fits into your workflow. As I mentioned earlier, I really like this controller paired with Virtual DJ. Now, if there's going to be any issues, it's going to be with the version of Virtual DJ 8 LE. So if you find yourself using the search feature or the filter folders function, or even if you just got it just to use auto mix or karaoke, then that may pose a problem and you'll find yourself paying the monthly subscription for Virtual DJ or outright buying the full version of the software. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a longtime fan of Traktor Pro, but when it comes to mapping, it takes a lot of time and is very tedious to go through the process. I've been sort of spoiled with the Traktor Z2, and I also had a Core 04, and those came with the TSI file to map it. But once you do it, it's a one-time thing and you don't have to do it again. I did a basic search on some of the forums just to see if anybody had mapped it and was willing to share their TSI file. I didn't really find anything that's sort of stuck out, but I'm pretty sure if you spend a little bit more time, you may be able to find somebody with a TSI file that will meet most of your requirements. So I guess the best way to end off this video is just to give you the pros and cons as far as what I see to be important. So for the pros, I would say it's definitely compatible with Traktor Pro 3 as well as Virtual DJ. It is budget friendly when you go looking for a mixer similar to this that's 4 channels and capable of doing DVS. The construction is solid, although it's still kind of light. The overall construction in the metal body is pretty good. Again, it's a 4-channel mixer, so it's kind of rare, but at the same time, excellent if you do find yourself mixing with all 4 channels. And also the addition of Balance XLR is great. So normally on budget controllers, you don't receive that. It's normally unbalanced. And for the cons, starting with the preamps, I do feel like they're very low. So specifically speaking on the microphone, it just was not strong enough to cut through the mix. And that's difficult if you find yourself making a lot of announcements or you like to speak on the mic and hype up the crowd. You will find it very difficult to be able to elevate your voice over top of the music without turning it down some. I am a frequent user of post-fader effects, so I really like to have that option now when I'm mixing. It's not a requirement, but I just enjoy using it, so for me it's very important. The limited inputs and outputs and configurability is a little bit of a concern to me. The options there are just not enough, but again, it is a budget mixer, but I just feel like that should be, because it's only software based, it should be able to accommodate for a lot more setups. For the crossfader, I do like the fact when you have the option to select if you want the crossfader to be on a particular channel. So them omitting this function, and again, I understand it's a budget mixer, but I would like to see that, especially on 4-channel mixers. And last but not least, the occasional popping noises. So what I mentioned earlier in the video and throughout the video, when you're switching between modes, when you're activating the send and return effects and it making that popping noise, it's kind of annoying, but hopefully they can fix it in the firmware. Now I know this device has been discontinued, but hopefully they'll still support it for a while, at least to fix some of the bugs. So on a good note, I can definitely say that I like this mixer as opposed to the PMX-10. I think this one offers a little bit more and it's a better value if you're interested in 4-channel mixing. Even when you go out looking on the market to try and find something comparable that's 4 channels, it'll be tough to find something less than $700 or $800 that does similar functions. Now again, it is a 4-channel mixer, but it only allows 2 channels in DVS, but trying to find something close to this price point was and is very difficult. So I'd like to leave you with this final thought. I've been DJing for quite a few years, and I will say that although we try and get the best equipment out there, don't let this price point alone, let this device stand between you or the difference between you being able to go out and perform, make great mixes and do great things, just until you're able to afford what you really like or something that's more expensive that suits your needs. So thinking back, I had to remember what I actually started on, which was a realistic old like 2-channel mixer, like 3 microphones, and that's sort of what I got started on. And then I upgraded to a Gemini PMX-20, which wasn't a lot better, but I was just happy with what I had. So compared to the older equipment that we started off with, this is leaps and bounds ahead of what we used to use back in the day. So definitely it's a lot better. And again, once you do get to a point where you can afford more expensive gear or one that better suits your needs, then definitely go for it. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you have any questions, definitely let me know. Leave me a comment in the comment section. I'll try and help out as much as possible. Otherwise, this is Kong signing out. Please like, share, and subscribe, and check us out at the website at www.xfaders.com.